Well, it's Tuesday, and as most of you know, we're joined by our In Focus health correspondent, Lenore Madu, who has some very important information for us.
Today is Thursday.
Today is Thursday. Oh
Yes,
my goodness, that's right.
It happens. Today we will be talking about a neglected tropical disease. Thanks to a 20-year campaign, Guinea worm disease is about to be eradicated. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter has been working tirelessly to help villages tackle the infectious disease. Carol Pearson reports.
If you have ever had guinea worms, raise your hand.
20 years ago, 3.5 million people in developing countries in Africa and Asia had guinea worm disease. The parasitic infection comes from a worm that can grow up to a meter long before it breaks out of a person's body. The worm emerges when it's ready to produce larvae. It's painful, and it can be crippling. In 1986, former U.S. President Jimmy Carter got involved.
I became obsessed almost with the prospect that the Carter Center could be successful in eradicating the disease.
The Carter Center led the campaign in its work with the United Nations, heads of state, major corporations, philanthropists, and most importantly, people who lived in some 23,000 rural villages in 22 countries.
So our task was to go to every one of these villages on Earth and to teach the people what caused guinea worm and then to teach them how to avoid having this terrible disease.
Guinea worm disease is caused by drinking water contaminated by guinea worm larvae and the tiny fleas that swallow that larvae. Once in a person's body, the larvae grow, mature, and mate. The males die off, but the females grow until they're ready to spawn. When the guinea worms break through the skin, relief comes from plunging that part of the body into water. Then the female expels her larvae into the water and the cycle continues. To prevent this disease, villagers have learned not to contaminate ponds by jumping into them when guinea worms are coming out of their bodies. They have learned how to filter their water through a finely woven cloth that prevents tiny fleas and guinea worm larvae from passing through. Some villagers have opted to treat their ponds with an insecticide. In other villages, people now get their drinking water from wells. Where the parasite has been eradicated, a report in the New England Journal of Medicine cites increased agricultural productivity, increased employment, and a drop in school absenteeism. Guinea worm disease now exists in only parts of 9 African countries. The Carter Center estimates that the disease will be completely eradicated by 2009. Carol Pearson, VOA News.
Earlier, I spoke to Dr. Donald Hopkins. He is the Vice President of Health Programs with the Carter Center. I asked him about the organization's efforts to eradicate guinea worm disease.
Our work has been to help countries and other partners to do a national search, find out where this disease is occurring, and then work with those communities to educate them about how to protect themselves and provide support for that. This was important because, A, it's a terrible disease. It doesn't kill a lot of the people it attacks, but it maims them and causes crippling for periods averaging 2 to 3 months, for example, annually, and it's seasonal. So that this disease would hit communities 40 or 50% or more right at the time when they need to plant or harvest their crops and cripple, especially adults, for periods averaging a couple of months. So it had impact on not just health, but agriculture and school attendance as well. Well, there are a lot of terrible diseases, but this was one that we knew we could do something about by preventing it. And so it became imperative, first at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and then in 1987 when I moved over to the Carter Center to work to help get rid of this disease altogether. There were an estimated 3.5 million cases of this disease still occurring in 1986, and by the year 29, we expect to have seen the last case. It can certainly be completely eradicated, and it helps that there is no animal reservoir of this disease. This parasite has to pass through human beings at least once a year, and once we interrupt that cycle of transmission, it has nowhere else to come back from. And unlike poliovirus or smallpox virus, This parasite cannot be maintained by freezing it in a refrigerator or anything. It has to pass through human beings once a year. So once we stop that cycle, it will be gone forever. This disease is certainly poverty related, and it's also related to people not understanding the environment. And our job is to help them to understand, A, that it's coming from their drinking water. It's not coming from something else that they might have rationalized. B, that they can keep themselves and their family healthy from this disease by filtering their drinking water, by not allowing people, including any neighbors who have this parasite, from contaminating their drinking water source in the first place. While the Guinea worm program was the first international health program of the Carter Center, we have 10 health programs now, including one domestic program, which is the mental health program of the Carter Center. But we're also working, in addition to Guinea worm eradication or dracunculiasis, we're working to control river blindness, onchocerciasis, lymphatic filariasis, schistosomiasis. We're also working against trachoma. We have a small agricultural program still, but we've been working on the one neglected tropical disease, Guinea worm disease, since 1986 at the Carter Center. We've been working on the others for about a decade now, especially in Nigeria. So neglected tropical diseases are not new to us. The funding for most of our projects come from other donors to the Carter Center, individual persons, also from foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is one of the largest donors down to the Carter Center, also from some other governments. Our modus operandi is to provide one person, usually formerly one expatriate, now most of these people are nationals of the country concerned, but one person in the Ministry of Health who works in and with the Ministry of Health to make these programs happen, and then with these many village volunteers. My final words are simply that modern science has given us several tools with which to help these communities improve their own lives. And our jobs as public health professionals is to help extend that help to them.
Thank you so much, Dr.
You're very welcome.
President Carter says there are now just 5,000 cases of Guinea worm disease in the world, and the Carter Center has just received pledges totaling $55 million to finally eliminate the disease. Those pledges come from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in the United States and Britain's Department for International Development. And that's it for your health today.
Well, it's really good news that at least that disease is on its way out.
I know, yes. One down, many more to go.
Many more to go. Well, thank you so much to Lenore Madu for joining us. And please be sure to watch for Lenore Madu every Tuesday and Thursday for the latest health news in Africa right here on In Focus. And for more information on these stories, please go to voanews.com/TV2Africa.